And welcome back to Pokemon Team Videos. Today's Pokemon Team video comes to us from Shadows82, who asked the age-old tried and true question, what is Aang's Pokemon team? Obviously, Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender. Now, Aang's a unique case here, because we know, obviously, he's the Avatar. So he can master all four elements. He's also the bridge between spirits. He's got the Avatar state. He's got a lot of different relationships and personality traits to him when you really break it down. So how do you create a team for him? There's a lot of ways you could go about it. For me, I looked at it like this. I wanted to do a team where I illustrated some of his relationships, certainly, but mostly kind of the fact that because he's a master of all four elements, you'd have Pokemon that represent those four elements on there. So let's get the relationship part of it out of the way. Right out of the gate, one of Aang, in fact, Aang's maybe closer relationship, apart from Katara, is, Appa. Wow, I was blanking on his name. Appa. And I'm like, okay, sweet. Problem with that is he's a bison. Now, we do have Pokemon, even a bison Pokemon. Buffalo is technically a bison even though his name's Buffalo. We call bison Buffalo and vice versa sometimes. But a bison is a buffalo, but a buffalo isn't a bison. But the problem is, Appa isn't a normal bison. He's a flying bison. He's a sky bison. So I'm doing the best I can, but ultimately, I had to go with Buffalon for that. There really isn't any... There are very few mammalian flying Pokemon to begin with. You have the Swoobat line. You have another Pokemon we're going to see in a little bit to represent another character. And I'm like going through, I'm like, technically, Thundurus and Landorus, I guess, are mammalian in their other forms. But there really aren't a lot of flying mammalian Pokemon. So, because Appa is a bison, and Buffalo, by all accounts, despite being Buffalo in the name, is also a bison, I felt it was a decent pick. But the other mammalian Pokemon we have on the team is to represent another little aspect of Aang that he has with him, and that's Momo. And Momo is a flying lemur. Now, we don't even have a lemur Pokemon, now that I say it out loud. But the closest we'd have maybe is Pansimian. But that said, we do have Emolga. And I think Emolga would represent Momo pretty well. It's a flying squirrel. Therefore, it's not designed the same way as Momo is, who is, while a flying lemur, seems to have more bat-like wings. Granted, with like a gliding, not fin, membrane, a flying membrane as well, but Momo's designed like a cross between a lemur and a bat, basically. Emolga isn't quite the same, and it's an electric type, and there's really nothing electric about Aang. He never learned a lightning bend, as far as we know. But I feel like in terms of a Momo stand-in, that's about as good as you're going to get. I don't see any other Pokemon really standing out to be Momo, because this is really the only other flying mammalian-type Pokemon we have. But so, I mean, those are his relationships. These next four are to represent the elements that Aang, controls. And obviously, Aang is predominantly an airbender. So I figured we'd start with that first. Now, in terms of airbending, Aang being a natural airbender and the Avatar is actually extremely powerful airbender. Like, I don't think he's like the world's strongest airbender, like in terms of grand history. But in terms of at the time, even for airbenders, he was very strong. He's kind of like considered a force of nature, really. So I knew that the airbender part of his team needed to be an exceptionally strong flying type. And speaking of the weather trio, I don't actually remember what the trio was called. But speaking of the third member of the trio, Thundurus and Landorus, we have Tornadus. And I wanted to go a bit more unique with Tornadus, so I went with its Therian form, I believe it's called. And the reason I went with that is because Aang does seem to have an affinity towards animals very well. He seems to get along with them. And seems to be able to not control them, but tame them to some degree. Kind of like a ranger would. And so I thought Therian form Tornadus was actually a very good pick for this. Aang can literally summon tornadoes if he needs to, create hurricane force winds, is also can use his wind for very finesse purposes, be it riding on the ball he creating a dome, a shield. Uh, Aang is just, a naturally gifted airbender. And I felt Tornadus being a legendary straight flying type. I think that's also very important. That's one of only, I think, 4 pure flying types. So I felt that was also pretty good to go with. But then we get into this little conundrum here. For the remaining 3 elements, fire, earth, and water, it's pretty obvious. I needed a water type, a fire type, and either a ground or rock type. But literally any Pokemon of that type in theory could work. I mean, Aang is also considered to be both a naturally gifted waterbender and firebender. Like, he seems that he's actually a very competent firebender. Said that multiple times. His earth, though, seems, because of his natural opposite, did give him problems. So I'm like trying to think, like, what can I make that's unique about the 3 Pokemon? And I thought on it, I'm like, well, Aang is initially an airbender first and the avatar second. And the fact that he learned the other elements are all byproducts of the fact that he is the avatar. So why not do this? Why not make every Pokemon that is either water, rock, or fire on his team to represent those elements a flying type as well? That way it shares the trait that they are still, solely on Aang's team due to the fact that he is an airbender. And I like that idea. So let's start out with water first. Let's actually go in the order, basically, that he mastered those elements. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Water was the first element beyond air that he mastered. And there are a couple water flying types out there. The one I liked the most, though, was Mantine. Mantine, to me, something about the personality of Mantine works for me. Its face, it's very cute. It carries a Remoraid around, kind of like Aang carries Momo around a little bit. It also is basically it's a kite, basically. And Aang has his glider, which, while not a kite, is an object that allows him to fly around. So and it's also kind of based off a jet in the same capacity. So I do like this idea of Mantine being his water representative. I've actually never used a Mantine on my team. I've seen and caught Mantikes in Diamond and Pearl before, sure. But I've actually never used a Mantine on my team. I actually don't know how good of a Pokemon they are, to be frank. But, that said, I like Mantine. I've always liked Mantine. Maybe at some point I'll get a chance to use it. Hell, we got Diamond and Pearl remakes coming in literally a month now. A month to the day, folks. So Mantine is the water representative of his team. But then I had to think, okay, Earth. That's tricky because I got to go with either a ground or a rock type. And going by the ground flying types, the pickings were slim to say the least. There are only 3 ground flying types. Landorus and its Therian form. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Therian. And then Gligar and Glysaur. And none of those were good representatives of Aang. Like, none of those worked. So I'm like, okay, let's move over to the rock side of things. So there were definitely a couple more options. One, though, stood out to me, and I had to think on it. Now, I could have gone Aerodactyl here. But Aerodactyl's just too aggressive of a Pokemon for it to really work in my mind. Like, it's just too much of like a predator that it doesn't fit with Aang's team. But one that I actually did like was, and I can never pronounce it, the Archaeopteryx Pokemon. This guy. I can never pronounce his name right. It's like Archaeopteryx or something like that. And the reason I liked it is, A, it's a rock flying type, so it fit the motif I was going with. But B, it's an extinct Pokemon. It's an ancient Pokemon. It's an old Pokemon. And Aang, despite being a kid, and obviously we go in the later years, obviously he grew up, but despite being a kid, is 112 years old. He is actually very old. Now, obviously, these Pokemon are far older than even Aang is. But it's an idea. I like that. This is a very old species of Pokemon that had to get brought back to life. Aang is someone who had to basically be woken up and, brought back to life. Add on the rock element to represent earth manipulation and the flying element to represent his airbender relation. And I think you actually have a decent fit there. So last but not least, we have our fire type. And the fire type, again, I knew it was a Pokemon that had to be powerful. It had to be a Pokemon that actually, you know, meant business to be on Aang's team, because Aang is, Aang is told that he's actually a very natural firebender. And it makes sense that, you know, air, wind, or oxygen fuels fires. So it would actually make sense that Aang's natural, would actually have a natural affinity for fire. So I wanted it to be a Pokemon that is very powerful, but also had something extra to it. And I'm like thinking, okay, in terms of Firefly, we only got so many options here. There are a couple options beyond, like, you know, just what we had with, like, the ground flying type. But still, it's limited. And then I finally came to the conclusion. I'm like, it's got to be Charizard. But it's Charizard Y. Now, why, pun intended, because that was the way that's getting set up, so I'm saying it's intended. Why Charizard Y? And for the record, I kind of like Charizard Y a bit better than Charizard X. Charizard X is cool, I like the dragon thing to it and the burning mouth stuff, but I feel like it's a little too drastic of a change. Like, when you really look at all the other Pokemon and their Mega Evolutions, yeah, they change form and they add shape, but you can see where it goes. With Charizard X, it was like it completely changed. It went from its blue and orange patterns to black and blue. Like, I felt like it was actually a little too drastic, whereas this just looks like a natural kind of quote unquote evolution. But I digress. So first off, this thing has some of the highest special attack of any Pokemon. I'm trying to remember exactly what Charizard Y's special attack actually is. I know it's huge. Let's see here. Give me this. I'm actually going to get it up right now because I am actually genuinely curious on what the what its I'm blanking. Hold on. What its special attack again was? Charizard Y. Okay. Stats Mega Evolution X gonna give it to you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Charizard's Y stats. Yeah, its special attack is 159. And these Mega Evolutions tend to go. By the way, you want to know why? Another reason why I think Mega Charizard Y looks better concept-wise than Mega Charizard X. Its shiny lends itself better than X's does. It just because Charizard shiny is pretty cool. It's a black Charizard, and that lends itself all the way to the Mega Evolution as well, which is just looks like a black. It looks like a dragon. It's really badass. But yeah, its special attack is off the charts. But the reason I went also with a Mega Charizard as opposed to just a standard Charizard is the idea of the Avatar state. I knew if I could get a chance to, it wasn't a guarantee for me. It wasn't a mandatory thing for this team. But I knew that if I was going to do this team, if I could incorporate something that kind of represented the Avatar state, that would be awesome. And a Mega Evolution, an upped form, an amped form, certainly fits that motif, certainly fits the bill. It makes complete sense that it honestly would fit that, to be honest. That a Mega Evolution, particularly of a fire Pokemon, would be a good idea to transition him to the Avatar state. So that's why Charizard Y is our Pokemon for fire. So just to recap, Buffalon to represent Appa, because the only damn bison we have in the entire Pokemon games. Emolga to represent Momo, because it is a flying kind of Roman. There is no flying lemur Pokemon. There's no lemur Pokemon to begin with. The Archaeopteryx Pokemon to represent his earthbending nature and the fact that he's also very old and, had to be brought back to life. Mantine to represent waterbending, his staff, which turns into a glider. Tornadus to represent the fact that he is a natural airbender and extremely powerful one at that, so I figured a legendary would work. And then Fire is represented by Charizard Y to represent again, the fact that he's a natural firebender as well, a very talented one, and a little bit of his avatar state. So that's Aang's Pokemon team, in my opinion. But that is just my opinion. Put down in the comments below whether or not you agree with this team. Trust me, this is a team I could see a lot of different interpretations of. Because I'm sure there are people who are like, oh, you got to include the Avatar. Say, what about Aang, Katara, Toph, all that? Or Aang, Katara, Toph, Katara, Toph, Azuka. What about them? It's like, the problem is, like, that's just a romance relationship and friendship. I'm not going to, like, there's a reason I don't think I put on Batman's team, I didn't put a Joker Pokemon, because while his relationship to the Joker is very important, it's not something that would define him per se as a Pokemon team. If anything, that's a cool idea. That might be a cool idea at one point, pitting these teams I've made against each other at some point. Pick the level they need to be at, obviously, and eventually do the Batman versus Joker one. But ultimately, yeah, this is my team for Aang. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's cool too. What would you do different? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. I've got, hopefully, box office has actually been updated right now. I'm going to check that right now as I'm talking. Box office report coming a little later. I'm also pre-recording my, oh, it is up. Nice, lovely. I guess I'll be doing that next. I'm also going to be pre-recording my Who Would Win and my What If for tomorrow, because the week of What If starts tomorrow. And I might even pre-record Tuesday's videos as well. At minimum, the Lantern Corp one, but we'll see. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.